Hi, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome all of you. It's so great to see such a good crowd. I'm Carrie Otto. Well, I'm still Carrie Otto. Glad to see all of you. This is a great crowd.
Anyway,
But today I want to tell you I'm very excited because we've got a really good speaker. We're looking forward to it. And this is BioBuffs. This is my life, my story, not BioBuffs. And we're going to have retired Colonel Bobby Smith of the U.S. Air Force talk to us about his exciting career and everything he can possibly tell us, but there are some things he can't tell us, I have a feeling. But anyway, looking forward to it. It's all yours.
Well, thanks everybody. I appreciate you showing up. Things I'm not going to cover. Okay, it says Tales of a Fighter Pilot. I'm not going to cover my time growing up on a farm, college, uh, all my assignments that I had that weren't fighter pilot assignments. Some of them highly classified, as she said, and times as a defense contractor, times flying corporate business jets, and all of our travels. We traveled extensively, spent a month in New Zealand, had 26 cruises, spent 3 years in Germany traveling around. So you guys won't stand for another 2 or 3 hours. So we're just going to cover the fighter pilot. And matter of fact, I can't even cover all my stories on the fighter pilot because I even got more than an hour's worth. So I tried to pick some of the best ones. Okay, what is a fighter pilot? Probably most of you don't know. Well, you see them flying over there and see them flying the F-35s and the 16s. Well, hopefully they didn't delete all of them. There we go. We're not just A-type personalities, okay? We're A-plus personalities. We're highly motivated, success-oriented. If we don't have success, we don't come home. So, kind of a little bit of a motivation there. We're aggressive and most of the times arrogant. We wear big watches. You know why we wear big watches? So we got something to shoot at, and it says we're rolling around and we're practicing and we're telling our tales. There I was, man, I was right here about ready to kill him, and so I have to have a big watch. All the stories I tell have to have 10% truth, unless I say there I was, or this is no joke, and I said joke, it's usually another S word, but we're trying to keep it clean. So we follow the 10% rule. That's me and my wife when I graduated ROTC. Flying first jet there in T-37s. You guys, I brought a little show and tell. This is what's called a G-suit. I think I can still fit in it. It is tight, and it's made to be tight. Oh, I can't fit in it. Anyway, the G-suit goes on, goes around your legs. This hooks up to the airplane, and there's bladders in there, and they blow up whenever you pull G's. And so the bladder's in the bottom of the leg and the thighs and around the stomach, and it pushes blood up in your head. And if they don't do that, you pass out. The G-suits are pretty good up to about 4 G's. Beyond that, you have to do other straining maneuvers. You have to actually strain your calves, strain your thighs, strain your butt, strain here, and remember to breathe all at the same time. And you can pull up to about 9 G's. I've done that. It's not fun. I would not recommend it. Whenever you put on your G-suit, if it's wintertime, you got a jacket. If it's not, then you put on a survival vest. Survival vest has a radio, has a compass, has a whistle, has flares that you can shoot off for signaling, has a pistol, has extra clip for 9mm. Then you put on your harness, because the harness, when you go out to the airplane, you sit down, and you're sitting on your survival kit. You got 1/2 inch of dense foam. Other than that, it's like sitting on here. So you sit down in the aircraft. You have to now hook up your harness that you put on. And oh, by the way, it goes right across here, goes across here. Can you imagine jumping out of an airplane at 400 knots and having a parachute open? And now it kind of slows you down quickly. You want to make sure these straps are in the right spot. Okay? So you hook up to your harness to the parachute that's in the airplane. Then you have to strap on the airplane. So now you've got another straps that come over, lap belt that comes in. You have to cinch those down nice and tight, because if you don't cinch it down nice and tight, when you pull negative G's, your head hits the canopy. You don't want to do that either. After you get all cinched into the airplane and got your G-suit hooked up, then they give you your helmet, and I'm not going to put it on because of all the other equipment I've got, but you put your helmet on. This, from the airplane, hooks up with your oxygen hose onto here. COM cord hooks on. This plugs into that. This plugs into the COM cord. Then you put this up so that you can breathe your oxygen and you can talk. Put your helmet on, strap it up, and if you're ever going to be claustrophobic, now's the time. Not only do you have all that on, you're sitting in this with stuff all here, stick here, feet down here, and then guess what? You're going to close your canopy, and you're going to be housed in this airplane. So, like I say, claustrophobic, you don't want to do that. So, anyway, we flew there in pilot training. That was the first one. Have hero pictures. That handsome young guy there with his supersonic jet. So we have our hero pictures. Whenever you graduate from pilot training, normally, not always, but normally fighters go to the top 10% of the class. So you have to be in the top 10% in order to get a fighter aircraft. Tell you a couple of jokes. Do you know how to tell when a fighter pilot is in your group? If you wait 5 minutes, he'll tell you. Do you know how many fighter pilots it takes to screw in a light bulb? Only one. The world revolves around him. And there's the same handsome guy. He's in his F4 now. Also, he's modest. You know, what can I say? In the F4, a lot bigger aircraft, obviously, than the T-38 that was there. Has a backseater. It does multiple missions. We would fly air to air. We could shoot down other airplanes. We carry missiles and guns to do that. We go do close air support, which means we're close to friendlies and enemies, and we hopefully drop on the enemies versus the friendlies. We do interdiction, which is we're going way into bad guy territory, and we're probably dropping on airfield or enemy communication centers, things like that. We also do just regular air-to-ground missions that are closer to that. Also do nuclear. I don't know if you knew that, but I set nuclear alert in the F4 in 2 different locations. We carry what's called a silver bullet underneath the bottom, and we could select different yields, different booms, and we would have to verify on those target. So we would be given a target, That's your target while you're setting alert. We had to set in front of a group of high-ranking, and we'd have to tell them how we're going to get there, how we're going to blow that up with our nuclear bomb, how we're going to survive, what we're going to do. And then they go, okay, you're good enough. You can set alert and do that. You know what the funny thing was? They would give us an eye patch. Because, as you know, there's a triad. You know, there's ballistic missiles, there's the submarines, and then there's airplanes. Those missiles fly a lot faster than we do from the time we get on in the airplane and go to get there. And they probably had repetitive nukes hitting the same targets. And so we would have an eye patch so that when a nuke went off over here and it blinded you, you could take off the eye patch and now you could still see. Until the next one went off, okay? And not only that, but you were probably the third or fourth one that went across to try to hit that target in case the other ones didn't work. So it was a one-way mission, and we all knew that, but that's what we signed up to go do. Thank goodness we never had to do it. When we would fly the F-4, obviously, we try to avoid enemy shooting at us, both with their guns as well as with their surface-to-air missiles, or we call them SAMs. So to do that, if you've got a mountain ridge and you're flying across and you come up to the mountain ridge and you go up here and you roll inverted and you pull back down, while you're up here, these bad guys can see you. You're highlighted against the sky up there. And you don't want to do that, okay? Because they can shoot at you. That's something we try to avoid. So when you come up to that ridge line and you're climbing up, you roll inverted before you get there. You pull over the top so that you're pulling down. So I am pulling inverted over the treetops at 10 or 20 feet as I'm pulling over to come back down on the other side so that you're not highlighted up there against the sky. So we have to have good concentration. You know, you've probably seen the movie Top Gun, you know, with Tom Cruise here recently. You know, he shows him going across the desert and kicking up dust. That was me. Shows him going down through the valleys. Done that. And not just me, fighter pilots. That's what we do. Okay? Shows him going into a pop maneuver, what we called it, and rolling over to go into a target and dropping a bomb. We used to do that. Doing the other guy, lasing, he's doing a big arc, and he's lasing the target as he's dropping a laser bomb. Done both those. The one thing I haven't done is pull 10 Gs. That's a little too much. But we did a lot of that type stuff. Fighter pilots are able to compartmentalize. Whenever you go to fly one of these, and the F-22, the F-35, the F-16, doesn't matter, you have to compartmentalize flying. So while you're doing this, you don't think about, well, my son's got a cold and we got to go to the doctor when I get back. That doesn't enter in your mind. My wife's mad at me because I forgot to take out the trash today. That's not there. It's 100% concentration, doing what you're doing. When you're down at 100 feet or less, it takes 2 seconds of not concentrating to hit the ground. And most of the time, that's not survivable. I know of one case it was. He actually bounced. So very compartmentalized. My job when I was a squadron commander was to make sure my guys were ready to go fly. So I would, if I wasn't flying, I'd be there around where we're got the flying schedule up there, and guys are getting ready to go fly, and I'm talking with them and I'm interacting with them to make sure that their mind is set for that mission. Because it's not only their body, peak little body that's at risk there, they have 1 or 3 other people with them that's relying on their abilities to keep them and bring them home safe. So that was one of my jobs. On one occasion, I'm there talking to one of my guys, and I go, "What's going on?" He goes, "Oh, nothing, everything's fine." I go, "No, what's going on?" He goes, "Oh, nothing. Why don't you come back to my office for a minute?" Go back to my office, and sure enough, he's having marital problems. His mind's not on there, so he didn't fly that particular day. So that's one of the jobs as a squadron commander is to know your people and to be able to identify when something like that, comes up so that they don't. This is air refueling. Jim there used to fly air refuelers. Okay? You can see back here that there's red, yellow, green, and inside here there's yellow and red inside there. So you come up to refuel, you try to get in the right proper position, and the guy laying on his stomach back there sticks the boom back where it goes, and then you try to maintain it this way. Also this way. Also this way. Okay? So you have to fly it to where all 3 of those are in the proper position. There are lights underneath the belly of the airplane to kind of help you fly in the right position. The F4 carries 6,000, shoots 6,000 rounds a minute. It shoots 20 millimeter. This is a 20 millimeter shell, brass. It is electrically fired. If you count it, 6,000 rounds a minute, that's 100 rounds a second. So we would go to the range, and they have usually a parachute down there with a berm, with a microphone behind it that counts supersonic bullets as they go by. And it's tuned so it's about the size of the parachute. They set our airplane on 100 rounds so that we don't use up a whole bunch and we don't spend taxpayers' money. And so we would, 100 rounds. Well, that's 1 second. Well, how fast can you pull the trigger? Because we make 3 passes. So 3 passes and 100 rounds. So the first pass, if you have your target down there and you're flying and there's some crosswind, your airplane's actually doing this. Even if you turn the airplane a little bit, it's still trying to do that. So I've got it right on the target. I'm going to shoot it. Well, by the time the bullets get there, your airplane's here. So guess where the bullets go? Over there. So the very first pass, you're very fast on that trigger because you want to shoot about 3 rounds, 10 maybe, so that you can see where the bullets hit and go, oh, I need to correct over here. So I need to shoot here so that when my airplane's here, that's where the bullets hit there. And we'd make 3 passes. So we also would fly around the range and we drop bombs and we get scores for our bombs. That's how we practice. When I was in Korea, a lot of open territory there, a lot of water. The engines in the F4 can't down. As you can see a little bit right here, the engine actually cants down. So if you get below 100 feet over the water, you can kick up a rooster tail just like your boat. Been there, done that. Had my wingmen do that, okay, as we're out there. When we were in Korea, we fly up real close to the DMZ. When we drop live bombs, we're within 3 miles of the demilitarized zone, practicing dropping live bombs. And that's to kind of show off to the North Koreans that we're here, we drop bombs, don't mess with us, okay? Well, they also have surface-to-air missiles, SAMs, up there. We have an instrument on our airplane that shows when they're just sweeping the area, oh, they're locked onto us. Oh, they shot at us. There's a missile airborne. I was up there one day and I was dropping bombs. Just like we like to mess with them, they like to mess with us. Sure enough, they were sweeping me. And I go, okay. Oh, they're locked onto me. Yeah, well, not going to do anything. We're at peace right now. And then all of a sudden, I get a launch indication. So we go through defensive maneuvers that we do in case there's an actual launch uh, so that we can avoid the missile. Well, you don't know until you can pick up the missile visual. So we're doing what we used to call the funky chicken. Uh, and we would avoid it. They were just messing with me. So when I got back, I had to clean out my flight suit. So anyway, they like to play with us like we used to like to play with them. When I came back to the States, I flew a Ford air control aircraft called the O2. That was flown in Vietnam. We flew them down in Tucson. We flew them out to Gila Bend. And what you do in that airplane, it's got a lot of visibility. You can't tell in this photo, but there's a lot of windows. It's got a lot of radios in it. And what we do is we go out where the Army is, and we find out where the friendly guys are, where the bad guys are. And then when the fighter shows up, we tell them where the bad guys are. We also carry rockets that shoot white phosphorus, and it'd be a big white smoke. And we could put that onto the bad guys, and then the fighters could drop their bombs, shoot their guns on the bad guys on that. So that was the mission of this particular airplane right here. We had Fort Sill, Oklahoma. That's where some of the Army guys are. They wanted us to go up there and train a few of their Army guys on the ground how better to talk with us in the air so that we kind of talked the same lingo and we understood where the Army guy is because the Army guy was kind of relaying it to us the right way versus in clicks versus miles or coordinates versus lat longs or whatever. So we went up to Fort Sill. Took 2 airplanes, 4 guys, flew up to Fort Sill. Landed, checked into the hotel. Next day, 2 of us took off, flew. The other 2 guys went out on the ground with the Army, and we were teaching everybody, and we had fighters coming in, practicing dropping. When we landed, the other 2 guys had already checked out of the hotel, had our bags packed with us. We fueled the airplane, and we flew down to Dallas. One of the guys, friend, met us at the airplane. We changed clothes. We caught the first pitch of the Texas Rangers ball game. After the ball game was over with, went back to his house, spent the night, got up the next day, got back in the airplanes. One of the other guys' sisters up in Manhattan, Kansas. So we flew up to Manhattan, Kansas. His brother-in-law met us. He's a county sheriff. Met us in his car, sheriff's car. Took us back to his house, fed us dinner. Got in the car, went over to Kansas City, caught the first pitch of the Kansas City Royals. Came back to his house, spent the night. Got up the next morning, and they go, "Hey, would you guys like to go water skiing?" Okay. They gave us some swim trunks. We went out, went water skiing, came back. They fed us lunch, took us back to the airplanes, flew, took off. The guy's other sister lives on a lake, and we decided to fly over the sister's house. And so we came over there, a little high altitude. We did a fighter roll-in down to shoot at her house and came off. And we flew back down to Dallas. The same guy picked us up in the car. Because of that, we missed the first pitch. We did catch the first inning, bottom of the first inning. Okay, went back to his house, spent the night, flew back up to Fort Sill so that we could fly again on Monday. It was fogged in all day. We couldn't turn a wheel. So we sat there in the hotel, played cards. Next day, it was clear, but we were finished. So we flew back down to Tucson. So we got 50 hours on the airplane. We caught 3 ball games and went water skiing. Okay? That's your taxpayer at work, okay? Got to have a little fun. This happened down at Tucson. You don't have to read the whole slide. I'll give you a short story. In between Tucson International and Davis-Monthan, there's an industrial area. And when we would fly those light airplanes, we'd come in and they want to get some fighter aircraft off because they're in training, and we had plenty of gas, so we would orbit there a couple of times while they're getting them off, and then we would land. I was there, sitting in the right seat as an instructor, and we're flying orbit, and I look down, and there's used tires. You know, you've seen big piles of used tires, you know, out. Well, it was in a big oval, and the center of the oval was empty. And it had the black tarpa over it, just like you have at the garden centers, and you could see dirt down there. And I go, that's odd. What are they doing with, you know, the tire? Why aren't the tires in the middle? You know, I understand that. So I go, okay, I'll keep an eye on it. 2 months later, came back and I was making another orbit again. I looked down at them again. There's green stuff down there inside that opening. So I call the drug enforcement police, and he goes, okay, but what you really need to do is you need to call the hotline. They'll keep your name out of it. It'll be confidential, and you might get a little bit of money. So I called the confidential line, and sure enough, he said that they would give it back to him. They didn't. That sheriff down there needed some publicity, so they raided the site. Didn't catch anybody because they didn't stake it out. That's what I wanted, them to catch somebody. But it was the Mafia, and you know how things are down in Tucson back in those days. This is in about 79. And so I got $500, and they had that's the biggest drug bust they'd had in Tucson at that particular time. So if you go back to Tucson, don't mention my name. The Mafia may still be after me on that, okay? Told you about that, you know, we'd also go out on the ground. Back then, we'd use Jeeps and trailers. We had an enlisted guy with us that took care of all the equipment, and we went down there, and we would talk to the O2, and we'd talk to the fighters, and so we would translate, you know, with the Army, and we went right along with the Army. You know, if they're out there in their half-tracks, or if they're out there in their tanks, or they're out there infantry, we're right there with them. And that was part of our job. Guys were assigned to Army units. And so if the Army unit went to combat, they went. Panama. My guys jumped into Panama. They were right there with the Army and were in the airplane because they were parachute qualified. We had guys that were parachutes. And they right there in the airplane jumping with them. As a matter of fact, one of the guys, right before he jumped, around went through the bottom of the airplane, got the guy in front of him, and they pulled him out of the way, and he jumped. So that's one story. Second story is when he's coming down, you have what's called a rucksack below you, so you deploy that, and it's hanging about 20 feet below you. And so it hits the ground first. It slows you a little bit because it took away about 50 pounds. He, because they were jumping into the airport, landed on the perimeter fence. He is upside down. His rucksack is on that side. He is on this side. And there's fire going on. He could hear fire going on. And so he cut himself loose, tried to figure out, well, I'm on the good side of the airport or am I on the bad side of the airport? Anyway, he got it together and ended up with several Army guys with him, and they went and did their mission down there in Panama. So that's the A-37. Down in Tucson, you know, it's 115 degrees like it is here. That O2 doesn't fly very well. We would fly early in the mornings, and we'd land by 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and go, that's it, too hot. So they decided, also because of the threats, the O2 wasn't as survival as it was in Vietnam, so they said, well, let's go with the A-37. So they traded those out and got these. After Vietnam, they sent all of these to the Air National Guard. So I went to the Air National Guard to get checked out. I was the first guy checked out in the A-37, and I brought the first force ship back to active force back in Tucson. Well, when I was up there with the Air National Guard pilots can stay till age 60. Okay? And so I'm a young captain, And I've got this instructor that's going to go out there and show me first day how to fly the A-37. He's got a limp. He's got gray hair. We got to carry a parachute. I felt sorry for him. I almost wanted to carry the parachute out to the airplane for him. I go, this is going to be a milquetoast flight. We're going to have to fly here and be real careful there and so forth. Well, we went out to the practice runway, and I made a nice, easy pattern. I didn't want to upset him, and came around and landed and took off. And he goes, I got it. Sucks the gear up, drops it to 10 feet, goes down to the end of the runway, pitches it up right here like this. Sorry, I'm backing him up now. I'm too excited. Oh, God. Anyway, he pitches it up like this. I'm looking at the runway down here, and I go, no way. He is not going to land that airplane. He goes over here, he pitches it down like that, goes down. We touch down, wings level. And I go, I got it. So I took the airplane, sucked up the gear, went down to 10 feet, pulled it up like that. So anyway, his fangs hit the floor. I never saw a guy. Oh, he was good. When I was flying this airplane down there in Tucson, the two F-16s had a midair. Both pilots ejected. One of the missions that we do on this airplane is that we learn how to do rescue. So we are rescue qualified for search and rescue. So I actually did a search and rescue against those two pilots. One of them I could find him. The other guy I really couldn't find, but his parachute. So he was underneath the parachute. He was out of it. But anyway, I'm coordinating with the proper communication folks and everything, and got the helicopters in, and I escorted the helicopters in to each one of them, and they thankfully rescued, and both pilots were okay. So they rescued both of them. So kind of proud of being able to do a real life rescue there with those guys. We do air refueling with this. You can see the air refueling probe out the front. A couple of stories on air refueling. Make sure I don't run out of time. It has a basket. You know, you saw the other one that plugged in the back of the airplane back here. Well, on this one, they put a hose on the end of that boom that comes down, and it's about 15 feet. And on the end of it, it's a basket. Yeah, about like that. And same as the Navy uses. Navy uses baskets on theirs. So we would come up to refuel. And if you didn't plug it in the middle, but you decided that you're going to plug it up here, and you keep adding power, because you're thinking it's going to slide down. It doesn't when you go at the top. It finally pushes it, and it goes down like this, comes back up, and just whap, puts a dent in the top of your airplane. So you try not to let that happen too often. One other mission I was on as an instructor, we went up, and he hooked on, got into the basket. When you do that, you want to push it and put an S in the hose so that you don't fall off, so that you've got room, and you can fly around. He pulled up right next to that knuckle, where the boom comes down and the hose hooks on. I mean, he was just right there. Guess what? The hose wrapped around the boom. It's just like a Chinese handcuffs, okay? So we can't unplug. So we had to sit there and fly and unwrap the hose. People often ask me, have I ever ejected from an airplane? That's the closest. I was out Gila Bend and flying, and one of my engines quit. Well, I've got two, and this airplane flies pretty good on one engine. But anyway, one of them quit. So I was coming back to Davis-Monthan. Several years before, when they had A7s, a guy was coming in, and to fly into the main runway at Davis-Monthan, you fly over the city. And he had an engine problem. Engine quit, and he crashed in the city, and a couple of ladies didn't make it in their car. So from then on, if you had an engine problem, you had to go around and fly over the industrial area and come in the opposite direction. Well, I had an engine problem, so I got to come in the opposite direction. So I'm over that industrial park, you know, where the marijuana was, and coming in, and we declared an emergency, which gives us priority because we got an engine out. And the tower didn't either get it or messed up, thought they could get the A-10s, so they cleared A-10s on the runway to take off. And they're going to take off this way, and I'm going to land this way. And I go, that's not working. I go, A-10s, I'm an emergency, exit the runway. And they go, what? I go, I'm landing, exit the runway. They did. When I went to land, just as I rotated out, the other engine quit. So I came, if I had extended, I wouldn't have made it. So I came real close to jumping out of that particular airplane. Also ask, have I done any combat missions? I have not. When I was in Germany, I don't know if you remember, we attacked Gaddafi down in Africa. I was slated to lead an 8-ship to go down to support and attack. And they, French and the Italian would not give us overflight. It was too far for us to go all the way around Spain, so we did not go. That's the closest I came to combat. Uh-oh. I don't know who put that one in there. Okay. This is a don't ask, don't tell time frame. So we don't ask, don't tell. Okay. When I was in Germany, flying F-4 Wild Weasels, and we were out. It was called a MOA, Military Operating Area. It's only that. It's not, civilians can't fly there. It's not a restricted space. It's just warning. Be careful when you fly there if you're a civilian. There are military jets in there. Well, we were flying in. We were down at 500 feet, coming in. We were doing one of those pop maneuvers where we fly up and we come over. Okay? So when you fly up, you go to a certain altitude before you roll over, so you get to a certain dive angle to come in. Well, when you go up, kind of the tendency is, where's that target? I think it's over. Is it really? No, it's over. Well, no, maybe. And so you tend to kind of roll a little bit, kind of that direction. I did that day. I rolled just a little bit, and I went, cut it out, because then you get too close and you get too steep. That's not good, because then you can't pull out. So I went back and I rolled my wings level. Just as I did that, light airplane went by. If I hadn't have turned just a little bit, he would have had a rougher day than me, because I would have ejected. He didn't. So that came real close on that one. You see the F-16 there is painted gray, and we're green. I had them change that. The reason they're gray on the F-16 is two things. Air to air is harder to see because you get kind of a gray sky. It's called blue, but it's really gray. And the Soviets at that time had what's called a contrast tracker. If there's something dark up here, they could see it and they could shoot it. If it's something gray up here, it kind of blends in. It's hard to see. They can't do a contrast. They can't shoot at it. So I had them change all the F4s over to gray. This is before they did that. Again, I did the Wild Weasel mission. It's called a Wild Weasel because the weasel goes out and ferrets things. Well, you know, I was telling you, as a fighter pilot, I want to avoid those SAMs. I want to be someplace they're not. I don't want them to see me. And the Wild Weasel mission is just the opposite. Here I am. Come shoot at me. Don't shoot at those guys over there. Shoot at me. Okay? Highlight me, because I've got a missile on my airplane that'll track and home into your radar site. And so that's the mission that we would do over in Spain Dahlem, is we would fly and try to kill SAMs. That was the mission I was supposed to go do with Gaddafi. I was going down there to support the F-111s and to kill the surface-to-air missile sites that were going to shoot at them. The Navy did it because we couldn't make it down there. I'll back up real quick. That's my 53-year-old son over there, and my 49-year-old son now, and my beautiful wife. That's her on the left. We do taxi rides once a year. All the wives that wanted to go could suit up. We put them in G suits, put them in survival vests, put them in the harness, take them out to the airplane, put them in the back seat, hook all the leads and everything up, a helmet on, mask up, the whole works, okay? Then we go out to the end of the runway where we close the canopy on them, all right, in the back seat. And then they pull on the runway and we light the afterburner so they can feel the light and feel the chunk on the afterburner. We go down the runway a little bit, pull it out of afterburner, pop the drag chute, pull off, come back, they get out. So they get a little taste of what we do. And so that was the wives. Ob10 Bronco, I came back and went up to Sumter, South Carolina, and flew the Ob10. A lot of visibility out of that airplane, most visibility I've ever seen. That's a Vietnam aircraft. It has really beefy gear and turboprops that reverse. And so you could come in and land, just go plant the airplane on, throw the props in reverse, and you could stop it into between 100 and 200 feet. I mean, really, really, we would come in, there's usually a taxiway, and there's usually a little bit of runway here. We could land and turn off on that first taxiway. So there's A10. Same thing I got on my hat. Built around the gun. It really is. You can shoot the gun 2 miles. It is a 30 millimeter. It only shoots 4,000 rounds a minute. Here's a 20 millimeter out of the F4. Here's a 30 millimeter out of the A10. Okay, that's the difference. This aluminum casing, it is fired just like your deer rifle is fired, where this is electrically fired. These are training rounds on the top. Obviously, it's empty. I'll put it up here. Both of them can have a explosive head on it so that when it hit, it explodes. The A10, though, predominantly carried depleted uranium rounds. Those would hit a tank and penetrate the armor on the tank. You could shoot those again from 2 miles out. Let's see now. You know, I was telling you about gray. Well, when I took over as squadron commander, I said, we're having gray. So I had all my jets painted gray for that same reason. So that's my airplane that I had there. I was a squadron commander. I had 350 folks, 24 airplanes, about 30 pilots. I had a couple of buildings, 3 or 4 buildings. I had a couple of hangars. I had a dormitory. Well, in the dormitory, it's 2-story. Had 2 people per room. One Monday, my first sergeant comes in and he goes, "Hey, boss, I got to tell you something." I go, "Okay, what is it? Let me sit down." That's usually not good. He goes, "Well, Saturday night, 2 of the guys on the second floor got a kiddie pool, and they filled it up with hot water, and they were sitting there drinking beer in their makeshift hot tub, and it broke. And it flooded their room, and it flooded the room below them." And I go, 2 guys in a hot tub? Is there something I need to know about this? He goes, "Well, boss, there were 2 18-year-olds. They got them out before the cops showed up." And I go, "Well, okay, we're all right then." Air refueling. You see it's a little different. In the F4, it's back in the back. In the A10, it's up here in the front. That's me. My wife took that picture. I got the wives a ride on the KC-135, the tanker aircraft. I not only got some of my wives, I got the 3-star general's wife a ride, and his F-16 came up a little later, and she got to see him. Kudos, I got some brownie points for that one. Green before we had them all painted gray. That's a Maverick missile underneath there. That missile can go after contrast, i.e. dark and light. Can also go after infrared, depending on which missile you've got. So we would carry those. These are flares, and there's 2 per tube. They're about that long. And we would go up on a range, and we would drop that at night, and it drops about 1,000 feet. The parachute opens and the flare ignites. You hopefully have figured out the wind, and you set it here, target here, and it flies across, and it burns out. And when it burns out, the parachute's cut, and it drops down to the ground. Well, so that we don't drop it on you folks, we're in a controlled range that only us, and there's no people underneath us, so that we can do that. We also drop bombs and shoot the gun and other things like that. I don't think you guys want to be around that. Well, we were out there, had just shortly got there, and they called us and they said, hey, we've got the Coast Guard down here, and there's a ship sinking with a family on it. Can you go out there and help them find it, because they can't find the ship? Well, again, we're used to search and rescue. We're used to dropping flares. But we're going to now go off to a range and go out in open water, or there's some islands out there, and we're going to drop these things. And it's going to burn out, and it's going to sink. And hopefully it doesn't hit somebody. So I'm the squadron commander. If anybody's going to get fired, it's going to be me. So I said, we'll do it. So we went out there, and we were able to drop the flares. Coast Guard was able to see them then from it, and was able to rescue the family. So second, I got to back up. Second search and rescue that I did. Got to set this next slide up a little bit. Got enough time. My squad, there's 5 squadrons there at Shaw Air Force Base in Sumter, South Carolina. My squadron was the party squadron, okay? I grew up with, not in Vietnam, just after, but a lot of the Vietnam guys taught me how to party. And so I go, I'm the squadron commander. If I'm going to get fired, it's going to be because of what I did, not what I think somebody else wants me to do. So we partied. We would, for an example, it's called carrier landings. We set up a couple of long tables. We soak it down with beer. You get back and you go running at that table. You jump on it on your belly on that table and you slide. There are 2 guys towards the end that have either a towel or a tablecloth held out. You hold your legs up and hopefully they catch you. If they don't, then you go off the end of the table and smack on the floor. It's called carrier landings. We've done that, okay? We have songbooks, anywhere from World War I up through Vietnam, different songs. I'm sorry, it's not because I can't sing, which I can't. They are not for this group. They're not mixed audience songs, okay? So we had those. We had one thing that's called a roof stomp. Joe's not at the club Friday night. Well, let's go find Joe. You go to his house, you get up on the roof, and you stomp on the roof until they come out and open the door, and you come in and you drink all their alcohol, you eat all their food, and then you leave the house dirty. Okay? Called a roof stomp. Well, shortly after I became a squadron commander, they decided to roof stomp me because I had a different party to go to that night. Because normally, I'm at the club every Friday night with my guys. And there's 2 reasons. One, to make sure they don't get any trouble. They had a tendency to do that. And 2, so that they were sober and they could drive home. If they couldn't, I went and got them a room at the officers' quarters for the night so that they didn't drive drunk. So I didn't have any of my guys get DWIs. So anyway, I was at a different party, so I wasn't there. They go, hey, the boss wasn't here tonight. Let's go roof stomping. Well, the wife and I back then did birthday suits for our clothing for bedtime. And so no big deal. They're going to get up. They're going to stomp the roof. You're going to hear them stomp the roof. You get up, you get dressed, you go open the door, and they drink all your whiskey and eat all your food. Except my son came home from his date. He goes, you guys don't need to get on the roof. Let me open the door for you. We heard him open the door. We just had time to get something on. And then they drank all our whiskey and ate all our food. So we do things like that. The few other things, I would get a call Saturday morning. Come get the table off the 9th green. Wait a minute, there's 4 other squadrons here. Why are you calling me? Come get the table off the 9th green. Yes, sir. Obviously, it was my guys, because my guys are the party guys. And so we'd go get the table. Or we would do some other things like, the wing commander had we had a party. He lived on base, golf course. He had a golf cart. The guys went up and stole his golf cart, took it down to my squadron, put it inside, came back, gave him a ransom note, said, you got to give us a drink or we won't get your golf cart back. So he bought a round, so he got the golf cart back. So we would do stuff like that all the time. The next slide, as an A-10 with the ground troops, I had Humvees with all the radios. I had an armory with M16s, 9 millimeters, blank ammo, live ammo, flak vest, steel pots, the whole works. The enlisted guys I told you about that helps maintain the equipment, they would dress up in bad guy stuff, and they would go out and attack the base anytime the base had an exercise, so the security police could have somebody to, attack against. So that's good. They had, blank ammo that they would use, M16s. They also had artillery simulators, which was 1/3 pound of dynamite. So it would and then boom, with 1/3 pound of dynamite. So it wasn't minor. My boss decided to retire, colonel, and the 5 squadrons, they divvied out different jobs to each one of us. My job was to pick him and his wife up at their house off base, bring them to the festivities, and then when they were too drunk to drive home, we took all their gifts and them and got them back to their house. That's too simple. We're the party squadron. We ain't going to do that. Okay? So we got in the squadron. We got our camos on, flak vest, helmets, did face paint, everything. We loaded the M16s with blank ammo with us, as well as my attack guys and their bad guy stuff. And we got in our 3 Hummers, and we went off base. I had to carry a live 9 millimeter because these were automatic weapons. In case somebody wanted to take one, I could take care of them. So we got to their house. The guys in the front 4 guys in each, secured the perimeter of the house, okay, so there wasn't any bad guys. Me and another guy that was in my Humvee went up to their door, knocked on their door. He's in his suit and tie. She's in her evening dress, and we gave them flak vest and helmets. I showed her the M16. He's being shown his M16 and how it operates, and because there's a threat. We may get attacked. We're here to protect you. Make sure you get to the event safely. And so we get them out, and we get in the Humvees, and we're talking on the radios, and we're proceeding all up there. I've got guys at the club, and they say, everybody outside. So all the guests now are coming outside. We're pulling up in the Humvees. An artillery simulator goes off, boom. Automatic weapon fire is going off with the guys attacking. The guys in front are going out, and they're returning fire. I'm taking care of Sue, and we get out, and I'm showing her, and the crowd is right there. And she is hosing down the crowd in fully automatic. I mean, just having a blast. She empties the gun. I pull out another clip and put it in, and she's getting ready to hose some more down. One of my guys comes out of the trees with a knife to attack her, and she turns and she hoses him down. He falls at her feet, blood capsule, and dies. You know? And so then we get them all back in the Jeep, go to the front door, and bring them in, and said, distinguished guests are here on time. So that's the most fun time as a squadron commander you could ever have. It was by far the best job, what I wanted to do all my life, and got to do it. And what's amazing, when I did this, there's 28 fighter squadrons in the world. In the world, I was one of them. Best job there. Can't match it. Okay, remember the disclaimers? Okay? And you know, I got paid to do that. You know, I even got paid and getting paid today. But teamwork. You know, she was fantastic there at the squadron. I was going to cover some spouse things, but she passed 2 months ago and I can't. So, questions? Questions? Anybody? Yeah. I did not have any women pilots. After I gave up the squadron and went to another assignment, yes, one did come in to the A-10 squadron. But just, no, wasn't my time. They just had not come in yet. Too old. Question?
The Weasel SAM detection system on the F4, what did you think of it?
It worked really well. I've even got a copy of that I didn't bring today in my apartment that shows the surface-to-air missile and shows the system. In the F4, we had receivers up in the nose, we had receivers in the wing and on the tail.
I was part of those design of those receivers.
Well, thank you. It worked good.
Thank you.
Got one over here.
Bobby?
Yeah.
My question is, when you find, occasionally you'll see fighters escort somebody who went astray, like flying over the White House. Do the radios in the fighters, can you communicate with private aircraft or airliners in the U.S.?
We can communicate with the airlines. It's on the same type of radio. So we just need to know their frequency is all we need to know. Same with the civilian airplanes. You know, they set alert, F-16 set alert, and they'll go up if an airplane's flying over where the president is and he shouldn't be there. They'll go intercept him and they'll radio him and tell him he needs to land or turn. So, yeah.
Sir,
Okay.
I understand that the Warthog A-10s were only flown by Air Force personnel. Is that true?
True.
Now, the question is, when they tried to get rid of them, they were old, I heard that infantry colonels saved it. Is that true?
I'm sorry, if what?
Infantry colonels.
No. They
Not
won't,
true.
they won't give them to the Army. They're putting them all in Davis-Monthan in the boneyard.
You know the other name of where the Warthog was?
What's Thunderbolt 2?
The infantryman's friend.
Yeah. I know. Whenever I tell them I'm a Warthog driver, I'm with the Army, they tend to want to buy you around. So, how long does refueling take? Depends on how much gas you're taking on. If you're going across the pond for 8 hours, you've got tankers, you're cycling in constantly so you can try to stay topped off so that you can divert to Iceland or Greenland or Azores. So we would be on for 5 minutes, you know, at a time. But if you're in combat and you're just about dry, you could be on 15 or 20 minutes, so you're down there flying for a long time.
How did you keep the jet fuel off the canopy glass, Colonel?
In the A10, there wasn't a problem. In the A37, whenever you plugged into that basket, we had no windshield wipers on the A37. It's like going through the worst rainstorm you've ever seen. Fuel just coming across. Everything goes blurry, and now you're in close proximity to everything. So you have to fly that basket till we call a null spot to where it seats perfectly, and it now stops going across your airplane. Of course, you're breathing 100% oxygen before you go up in case that happens. It's not good breathing all that JP4. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all for coming.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
And I want to thank you, Bobby. Thank you for what you did for our
Thank you.
country. Thank you. Also, before you go, somebody dropped an earring in the hallway. In case you're missing one, come see me. It's you. Thank you all.
So it'll pass? It'll pass?
What's that?
You said it'll pass?
I can remember. I didn't know we spent that much money on you.
You bet.
Great job.